Good morning, everyone. 18 minutes after the hour. Welcome back to the Sunrise Show. Craig Fronikin, and in the studio with me this morning, Deputy District Attorney David Orr, and he's running for judge on the Circuit Court, 1st District, Position 4. And David, thanks for coming in this morning.
Good morning, Craig. Thanks for having me on the show.
You're Deputy District Attorney, been in Jackson County since 2003. You were in Lynn County before that, and you've done it for 20-plus years, 25? How many years?
About 21 years as a lawyer. Yes.
My goodness. And now you're going up against incumbent Judge Crane for this position. She's having to go for re-election, and this is a big deal for someone in the DA's office to go up against the judge. I mean, everyone's being professional and all of that,
sure.
So you don't have that problem. But then you've got the whole issue of fellow district attorneys and fellow judges, and looking at the whole cause. So explain to our listeners why you think it's important to run for this position.
Well, the first thing people should know is that the person I'm running against has admitted that she does not intend to complete the term that she's asking people to elect her for. She was on the Bill Myers show last week.
She verbally said that.
She admitted, he said, will you swear on it? Because he didn't expect that she would admit this. So he said, will you swear on a stack of judicial Bibles that if we elect you, you'll complete your term? And her answer was absolutely not. She threw in the absolute. I guess she didn't want to look weak, so she said absolutely not. And then she went on to say that she didn't believe people want to elect their judges and that they should be appointed. So,
and one of the big complaints you've got, and one of your on your campaign, is this whole appointment piece. You've done this before. You ran against Judge Ben Bloom in 2012 on the appointment issue. And explain this appointment issue to our listeners.
So in Oregon, by statute, judges are supposed to be elected.
They are elected position. Correct.
Right. It's an elected position. They're supposed to be elected. But, it could happen that a judge gets sick or disabled or for some reason can't fulfill the term. If that's the case, then the governor is allowed to appoint a replacement, and that replacement judge then has to run in the next election. But what we find is that across Oregon, and I'm looking at a document here prepared by the League of Women Voters of Oregon Education Fund. It's a bit dated. It's from 2007, but if anything, the situation has only gotten worse. They write that 75% of Oregon's sitting state judges had reached the bench by gubernatorial appointment to fulfill
75%.
75. Now, we're doing good in Jackson County. It's only 5 out of the 9 that got appointed by the governor rather than being elected.
Right.
But still, I mean, how could this be? It should be the rare exception rather than the norm. And what's going on? It's sort of an open...
It should be reversed. It should be 25% appointed. Something along those lines.
Even 25% of people can't finish their terms? Where in other elected offices do you see even 25% of people not finishing their terms?
I know
So what the judges have going is a system where when it's time for you to retire, you don't finish the term, you resign a little bit early, then the judge appoints somebody. When that happens, the person who takes office, then
they basically have the high ground. Yeah,
right. And it's different than being an incumbent, say, in a race for a state legislature, where you're always going to have a rival. No, when you are a judge, the only people that can run against you are attorneys. And so, since these appointed judges are rarely, they're not challenged because all the attorneys who have to appear in front of them are going to support them. Even if they don't really in their heart support them, they want to be able to show, yes, we're supporting you, because they have to go in front of the judge with their cases. So they don't want to make this judge upset.
They don't want to cause waves.
So they're happy to write letters to the Tribune, and because they're trying to get that credit, to curry favor with the judge.
Now, does that data that you have, the 75%, does that include the Oregon Supreme Court judges as well?
So I did some research.
Because that's very serious. I mean, not that our county judges, our circuit court aren't important, but you think about if someone were to go to the Oregon Supreme Court and the judges were appointed on the basis of political agenda.
So the state Supreme Court has 7 justices. The Oregon Court of Appeals, which is also very powerful, you don't hear about them a lot, but they make a lot of law because only a few cases make it past the Court of Appeals to the Oregon Supreme Court. So there's I can't remember the number, but they have several panels. When I researched, I actually took the time in 2012 to research all of them. I found that looking at all of the Court of Appeals judges and all of the state Supreme Court, there was one single judge who had not originally risen to that position by being appointed by the governor when the person before them resigned. That's a scary fact.
And they're all supposed to be now.
They're all supposed to be elected. Now, many of them who are there have currently gotten their seat by election, but that's because they already got onto the bench by gubernatorial appointment. Imagine
when they originated.
Yes, imagine. So you get appointed to the Supreme Court when somebody else quits. How is somebody going to challenge you? They're going to come in and put in the pamphlet, okay, my job is attorney. My opponent's is Supreme Court justice. How do you run a race like that? And most people open their voter pamphlets. They look, they see, okay, this person's the incumbent. I haven't heard anything bad about him. We must have elected him before. So no reason not to elect him again. But in reality, the overwhelming majority of them are appointed by our governor. And this should be troubling at a number of levels. I mean, first of all, just what is democracy? Where is democracy when this happens? But the other thing is, we've all learned in our civics classes in high school about the separation of powers. So, I mean, what is that? This is something that our founding fathers came up with, the idea that we don't want the government to have too much power over us. So what do? We give the government power, but we split their power into three different branches: the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary. And so they, among themselves, have this triangle that each one vies for power and nobody has too much. So when you have a situation where the executive office, meaning the governor, has complete control over the judiciary, that balance of power is destroyed. And who pays the price?
Yeah, well, the people get less impartiality.
Exactly.
Yeah. We've got David Orr in the studio with us. He's a deputy district attorney. He's been in Jackson County since 2003. He's got 21 years of experience as an attorney, and he's running against his opponent, Judge Pat Crane, for the 1st District, Position 4, and we're going to talk more with him. David, I saw your Facebook, David Orr, the number 4 for Judge.
Correct.
On Facebook. The website? You have a...
No, it's just the Facebook page. I don't take campaign contributions, so I'm not able to spend a lot of money.
And we'll talk about that as well. So we'll come right back. More on the Sunrise Show after this. Good morning, everyone. 35 minutes after the hour. Welcome back to the Sunrise Show. Craig Frohn and continuing with David Orr. He's Deputy District Attorney in Jackson County. Been doing that since 2003. And now he's running for judge, Circuit Court Judge in the 1st District, Position 4. And David, thanks for coming in this morning. We talked about the appointment process and how the voters of Oregon, the citizens of Oregon, aren't getting a chance to elect their judges because they're being appointed prior to the term expiring. They're retiring in between terms. Now, I understand if it happens, they just can't make the 4-year term. It is a 4-year term, correct?
It's a 6-year term.
6-year term.
Yeah.
All right. That's why I wondered. So a 6-year term, they just can't quite make it. So they bail. The judges bail for one reason or another, and then the governor sees fit to appoint. But you brought up an amazing fact: 75% of judges
across the state
are appointed, and only 25% are elected. And you're wondering,
how can that be?
Exactly right. Now, your opponent is Judge Crane, and she's run the drug court, and the property crime rate. This is amazing when you look at property crime offenses, and this graph is showing that we know from my discussions with Medford Police Chief Tim George, who's now retired, that crime is fueled, drug crime. Property crime is fueled by drug crime. Everything is fueled by it. And it's just a matter of, what would you say to that?
Well,
do we have results? That's what I'm asking.
Well, you're looking at the graph there. You're looking at the graph of property crimes since 2009. Unfortunately, that only goes up to 2012, but you see a steady and continuing rise year after year. So this drug court program that Crane has is not producing results. And there's something else about the drug court program that I think is widely misunderstood. When I talk to people about it, I ask them, well, have you heard about it? What do you think about about it, they say, oh, it's really great because everybody else is putting people who are convicted of drug crimes in prison. We pay for their incarceration. And Crane is really smart because her idea is to treat these people and save us money. And it's just such a better idea. And nothing could be further from the truth. In Oregon, you cannot get a prison term for possession of drugs unless it's a large commercial quantity. Even then, if you don't have a serious criminal record, you're still likely to get probation. But if it's just simple possession, methamphetamine, heroin, cocaine, whatever it might be, I can tell your sentence is always going to be 18 months probation and a maximum of 10 days jail. The 10 days jail you will not serve, even if you're sentenced to it, because you get the sentence and the jail will immediately release you.
Right.
So who is in drug court, you might ask, if it's not these drug offenders?
And there are people being served in drug court. I mean, addicts that are getting help. Between that and, I know that it's kind of a scared straight thing, but then you wonder, all right, what are the numbers in comparison to all of the addiction recovery that's going on? And we've got a whole nother.
Right. So most of the people in drug court, when I say most, it's well over 90% are in there for victim crimes. And why is this? If you today go out and, let's say tonight, you decide to burglarize the 7-Eleven, you break in at night and you steal the cash register, your sentence, whether you have a lawyer or not, whether you just get up there and plead guilty, your sentence is going to be probation, and there's nothing the prosecutor can do about it. Let's say you did that, and then you committed an ID theft, a separate case. Again, your sentence is going to be probation. This is because you have no history now, except for that burglary. You have no history. Again, your sentence is going to be probation. It's only when you have your third of a particular list of crimes, and by the way, this list doesn't include things you might think should be on there, like breaking into cars and stealing things. You can do that as many times as you want. That's a misdemeanor. You're not going to be looking at a prison term. But so you could have a whole bunch of car break-ins, and when you're on your third property felony, and I'm talking about a victim crime, that is when the law says now your presumed sentence is prison. It would be 18 months prison, which again, you wouldn't serve the entirety of. But then that's when you'd be what we call presumed prison. Those are the people that choose drug court. Why aren't they putting them in drug court on their first offense or on their second offense?
Can they get into drug court when it's not a drug crime? So you're telling me
all of them are in there for crimes that aren't drug crimes, correct? They have to state that they have a drug problem. It can even be pot. I remember the first time I came into contact with drug court, I had a guy, he was in his 40s. He had also, I think, something like 40-something arrests, numerous property crimes on his record. He was RPO, what we call a repeat property offender, many times over. His presumed sentence was prison. He just came into court with his lawyer and said, yeah, we want drug court. I'm going through divorce and I've been smoking pot. Bang. Drug court. And his presumed sentence was supposed to be prison, because of all the priors. And so, and he had stolen a car. He had actually stolen a car, driven drunk, and then the next morning, when he's no longer drunk, he went to police impound, tried to pretend he was the owner, and still tried to get the car out. And all he said was, "I'm going through a divorce and smoking pot," and bang, he's in drug court. I believe in treating people who really want to reform, and they say, well, I've got this methamphetamine problem. Please give me treatment. I want to change. But no, every single person, and she admits this when she talked to Bill Meyer, you apply, you're in. Why is this? Shouldn't we be reduce that program to the number of people who really want to reform, who want to change their ways, where this treatment would actually work? Focus on them instead of just fill it. From what I see, it's like, and I can't explain why, but they want to fill up all those seats regardless of who's in there and what the cost is. It's just keep those seats filled. Does it have something to do with grants? You'd have to ask her. I don't know how that system works.
I've never explored that. I do know that in drug court, it's difficult, and that the person that signs up, basically, they have to plead guilty. And then they have to follow all the steps, and then after they complete it successfully, then it is given probation by ward of the court. Am I saying that correctly?
Well, the drug court is probation, basically.
Right.
It's probation where you have to go in
But they
more
have
often.
a conviction hanging over their head that if they fail to do the steps of the drug court, there's no adjudication on that. They have pled guilty to the crime.
That's correct.
Yeah. Wow, this is amazing. David, can you stay? I've got a break, but can we continue?
Sure.
Oh, great, great. We've got David Orr in with us. He's Deputy District Attorney, and he's running for a judge in the 1st District, Position 4. So let's take a break and come right back. More on the Sunrise Show after this. You can find us on the web, kcmxam.com, and the phone number here, 541-772-8255. We'll open up the phone lines if you'd like, and then ask David a question. And it's just a matter of getting involved, ladies and gentlemen. We've got 19 days until the May 17th primary in Oregon. I hope you are registered and that you will read through your voter's pamphlet. We've got that here in the studio. And then fill out your ballot completely for all races. So let's be back here in a moment. Sunrise with Craig on News Radio 880 KCMX. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. 48 minutes after the hour. Welcome back to the Sunrise Show. We've got David Orr in. He's a Deputy District Attorney. He's been in Jackson County since 2003, and he's running for Circuit Court Judge in the 1st District, Position 4. And, David, we talked about the appointment process, and I'm thinking, okay, so Supreme Court justices, United States Supreme Court are appointed, but there's a difference, and that is, once the appointment goes, it then goes before the Senate and they approve. So they get a voice from the people as far as representation. In the state of Oregon, if the governor is to appoint a Oregon Supreme Court justice, it's over at that point, isn't it?
That's correct. In the federal system, it's not just the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, by the way, all the federal judges.
Right.
They are appointed by the president, and then the Senate, 100 people who we have elected get to review this person and give a thumbs up or thumbs down. So the president does not have that power over the judiciary like the governor does here. Here in Oregon, the governor has absolute power to appoint whoever he or she wants and is accountable to nobody. Now, they do play these games. They say, the governor might say, I looked at, I took this recommendation from the bar, or we did this kind of vetting. But it's all kind of for show, because they do it sometimes, then other times they feel like they don't have time, or they want to move it along, and they'll just appoint somebody just like that without any input from the bar. But overall, the people have no say in this process whatsoever.
Well, it's interesting. This article that came out of Medford Mail Tribune from 2012, and it talked about the different appointments, the different judges, and then a few of the judges in Jackson County that actually ran for positions. There was a couple of positions that opened. I think Judge Ron Grensky ran for a position that was brand new, right?
Correct. It was a created position.
Correct.
And that's why there was an open seat.
And then Judge Tim Barnack, he ran for retiring Judge Rebecca Orff's position. Correct. But then there was a pushback for you on the 2010 judicial appointments, which you had actually put your name in the ring for consideration. And talk about that.
So that was the first time that I ever considered being a judge. In 2010, I saw these retirements, and I started looking at what's going on, and I saw that unless there's an open seat, which happens very rarely, either when they create a new position or in the case of Judge Becky Orff. Well, no, they usually don't retire. They usually won't finish a term. But Becky Orff had, I don't know if you remember, particular issues. There were some legal issues, and so she decided not to run again. Other than that, you do not see seats opening up. I thought, okay, well, it seems to be that this is the only way you can become a judge. So I applied, and I thought, well, I've got some experience here. Even at that point, I'd done well over 100 jury trials. I had been prosecuting child abuse for a long time. I thought, well, I'm pretty well situated. I've been a prosecutor. I've been a defense attorney.
But then you found out what it was all about.
And then I found out they didn't even look at me because I wasn't in the club.
Interesting.
Yeah.
because here's the next problem. I mean, we talked for this last race with William Francis ran, David Hoppy ran, and Adam Peterson, who was the incumbent, ran. This was back in 2014, I believe. And the issue was, getting the interest for the listeners, for the voters to make a decision, because just like you said, the incumbent has the high ground. If they figure, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Right.
And people don't look past the surface. Correct. So it was people are kind of understanding that appointments maybe shouldn't be. There shouldn't be appointments to begin with.
Well, that's what the law says. The law says judges are supposed to be elected. So in my case, I'm running and I'm trying to explain to people, according to my opponent's own words, she's saying, elect me, and that will get you a little bit later down the road a judge appointed by the governor who you have no say over. You have no say over who gets appointed. She's admitting that. I just wondering how voters are.
I know it well, and this is a matter of voters getting engaged and listening and putting two and two together.
Well, I think so many people don't pay attention to these races, and that's why they're able to. These appointed judges are able to get away with it. We were talking during one of the breaks today about the undervote. So let's say in a typical race, let's say depending on whether it's the primary or the general. Let's say in a primary, it might be around 40% of people that turn in a ballot. Of those 40% of the people that turn in a ballot, about 30 to 35% leave judicial races blank. That's how these people get away. That's how the judges get away with it, because they know people just don't know.
Yeah, and then you have thousands. I've seen where the winner has, say, 4,000 or 5,000 votes, and the loser might have 2,000 or 3,000 votes, and there's 4,000 votes in the undervote category. You're thinking, oh my goodness. Or maybe even more than that, and a third candidate, if he'd had the undervote, could have won. It's
Craig. When I ran in 2012, the total undervotes it's exactly like what you were describing. The total number of undervotes was higher than the number of votes by which I lost.
Yeah, that's a real shame, because you wonder. This is why I talk about it all the time. People need to have a voice. They need to utilize it, and if we don't, then what this does is gives the folks that are voting a louder voice, because you mathematically split the electorate by the amount of voters, and their vote now counts more than one. It would count mathematically 1.5, or could be any number of.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, this is amazing, David. This is going to be great. And now, of course, anything else before we finish up today on why you should be elected circuit court judge in the 1st District, position 4?
Well, I could talk just briefly about my experience. So I started off in Kansas in 1994 as a public defender. I did criminal defense work for about 3.5 years, which I'm glad I did. It's important to understand that side, and understand that not everybody that's charged with a crime is necessarily the monster they might be made out to be. It's important to view that side. So I did that for 3.5 years, watched how that works, and then saw some things I didn't like in prosecution, and thought, well, instead of grumbling and complaining, I should be one of them and try to do the job correctly. So since 2000, I started in Lynn County as a deputy DA. I've prosecuted a very wide range of crimes, just up and down. I did in this county. They had me for 5 years in the child abuse caseload, the criminal child abuse, child molesters, child abusers. I had that caseload for 5 years. I currently have all the cases assigned to me that are adult sex. So, for instance, wherever an adult is a victim, all the rapes, sex abuses, all those cases that where the victims are adults, I handle the entirety of those.
Wow. David, I want to ask you, when Sheriff Falls made a difficult decision and shut down that lower floor, that 65 beds in the county jail, does that affect, are you seeing an uptick of the revolving door, quote unquote? Are you seeing, is that affecting what you're doing? Are you seeing more, or are people being put away for the crimes? Are they?
No, you are pretty much guaranteed, and I'm a little bit worried about saying this on the air, but you are pretty much guaranteed, even if you have a criminal record, if you commit a crime that's not a Measure 11, for instance, you go out and steal a car, forge a check, steal somebody's credit card, if you get arrested, which you may or may not, they may just cut you a citation. If you get arrested, you are going to get out the next day on your own recognizance. And criminals know that. And what's happening to me now is I find it really difficult to get a case prosecuted because very few people stay in jail pending trial. So a case gets set for trial. I subpoena the witnesses, so they come on the day of trial, and guess who doesn't show up? The defendant, because they know that nothing's going to happen. Yes, they get arrested and they immediately get released. So I have to call off the witnesses, and then they reset it for trial, and the same thing happens again. You get to the third time, I call the witnesses again and say, look, we need you for trial. And they say, well, can you guarantee me it's going to go this time? Because I've been there twice.
Well, think about witnesses and everything else. Yeah.
And when they say, can you guarantee that? I say, no, I can't, because the guy isn't in jail and he's really got no reason to show up. So it is quite problematic. I don't know if this is Corey Falls. I don't know what's going on there with the jail, but we clearly have a problem with jail space. Well,
that's the issue. And then the next thing is all of this costs money. I mean, it slows down the process. There's less, criminal final results, and they just have to continue on things. It's
That's
amazing.
Correct.
Well, David, it's great to have you, and thanks for coming in this morning. You can find David Orr, ladies and gentlemen, on his Facebook page, David Orr, the number 4 judge on Facebook. Hit him up there. He's having quite the discussion on that. And David Orr, currently Deputy District Attorney, running for Circuit Court Judge in the 1st District, position 4. Thanks, David.
Thank you, Craig.
All right, we'll be right back. More on the Sunrise Show. Stay tuned. We've got candidate for Oregon governor.